South Africa is a movie. We live in a drama. It's a series. Every day you will be shocked by something new.
Listen, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying the problem here is with the children. The children know nothing. The children know nothing. They don't know if they are illegal, they are not illegal, how their parents got citizenship. They don't know anything. So we can't blame the kids. We blame the parents. We cannot blame the kids. But then we can't allow that situation, or us not blaming the kids, to lead our own kids to suffer. We can't tolerate that kind of situation. We really can't tolerate that kind of situation, because no one out there is looking out for our kids, for our South African kids. No one. If we don't look out for them, who is going to look out for them? No one is going to look out for them. So let us try to prioritize South Africans, and then when there's access of space, is then that we can lend a helping hand, is then that we can say, okay, we have space. There's no child here in South Africa who doesn't receive an education. So it's then we can start taking in these foreigners. That makes sense because we have access.
This is where we are expecting members of Operation Dudula and all those that are part of the public that are in support of the movement and their programs to gather here at Deep Kloof Square. And this is, of course, the meeting point, and they'll be going to various schools here in Soweto. We understand that the focus is about 4 primary schools, namely Zitatele, Dadaisang, and Leradong, a primary school in this area. And really their focus is to put out a message out there to essentially say that South African children should be prioritized in public schools, as we have seen that they started their movement with public health facilities, to be quite specific, where they were preventing some migrants, from accessing the facilities. As you've rightfully said, not so long ago, we were covering a story where there was a Malawian mother who was claiming, a Malawian mother who claimed that she lost her toddler, who was denied access at 2 local clinics in Alexandra. Now they are expanding this into the education sector, and they are adamant that they will remain in this position, even with the criticism that we have seen come from education activists who have condemned this act, essentially saying that Operation Dudula is violating, the constitutional right, as we understand that everyone needs to have access to education in this country. By everyone, I mean everyone who is within South African borders. So we are expecting a number of them to gather outside of here. So it is going to be something of like a march, where they'll be going to these various schools. At this particular moment, we don't know how it's going to be looking like in terms of, police visibility, monitoring those kind of schools, so that schools are not disrupted in the process, because we have seen with the clinics, that kind of caused a bit of disruption, leading to, the SAPS being on the ground to ensure that there are no injuries, and also, everything continues as normal. So they are saying that they are trying to put a message out there that the South African government should prioritize South African children, because there is an issue in various schools where you would find, some children having to attend schools that are quite far from where they stay, mainly because, the school that is actually quite close to their home is full, or it has reached its capacity. So that is, an issue. But critics have also suggested that Operation Dudula is redirecting their frustrations to the wrong people, referring to migrant children and, of course, their parents, saying that this is a result of, the failure of the system in government. But, of course, Arabile, as the day goes by, we'll keep you updated as to how this march will unfold.
This issue of Operation Dudula planning on prioritizing South African kids next year, making sure that there's no South African child who doesn't receive an education simply because they are told there's no space, when the reality is that spaces have been allocated to the children of illegal foreigners. This hasn't even been implemented yet, but it's already been attacked from all directions. The people who would rather fight for other people instead of fighting for South Africans are pissed off. So they want to start early attacking this planned operation, making sure that illegal foreigners continue to be allocated in our public schools, and then some South African kids continue to receive no education. You know, the sad reality is that people love to complicate something that is not complicated. Something that is really not complicated at all. There are foreigners who are employed here in South Africa, employed in positions that don't demand scarce skills. Yet there are South Africans who are sitting at home who are always complaining about unemployment. They continue to thrive here in South Africa. At the same time, the people who are actually South African continue to suffer, continue to live in misery.
We have about 10,000 foreigners that are employed by the Department of Education nationally. So we know that our own are not getting jobs because the posts have been occupied by those foreigners.
Authorities promised to respond to the demands in due course.
And then on top of the situation that adds on the unemployment rate of South Africa, the very situation that the video I stitched is fighting about. There's some people who would rather ignore the cries of South Africans when South Africans say some of our kids have to wait until April before they get admission into some schools. Some kids stay for the whole year without receiving education because they didn't get space. And there's many stories like that here in South Africa. If you can go to our townships, our rural areas, you'll find many of these cases. Yet there's people who want to go against Operation Dudula when it wants to make sure that every child here in South Africa who is a South African receives an education. They want the people who came to South Africa illegally to benefit from the resources of South Africa, the resources that are paid for by South African citizens. They want these kids of illegal foreigners to continue receiving an education when some South African kids are not receiving the education. Listen, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying the problem here is with the children. The children know nothing. The children know nothing. They don't know if they are illegal, they are not illegal, how their parents got citizenship. They don't know anything. So we can't blame the kids. We blame the parents. We cannot blame the kids. But then we can't allow that situation, or us not blaming the kids, to lead our own kids to suffer. We can't tolerate that kind of situation. We really can't tolerate that kind of situation because no one out there is looking out for our kids, for our South African kids. No one. If we don't look out for them, who is going to look out for them? No one is going to look out for them. So let us try to prioritize South Africans, and then when there's access of space, is then that we can lend a helping hand. Is then that we can say, okay, we have space. We have space. There's no child here in South Africa who doesn't receive an education. So it's then we can start taking in these foreigners. That makes sense because we have access. But we can't lend a helping hand at the expense of South Africans. We can't do that. If we are going to say we have Ubuntu, it's humanity, we have to help other people, and then there's South Africans who are suffering, that thing is not something we need to do. It's not something we need to even tolerate. No. We have to make sure that we prioritize South Africans, and then if we have an access of resources, is then that we can lend a helping hand. That makes sense. So what Operation Dudula is trying to do, they are trying to do exactly that. They are trying to prioritize South Africans. They are not trying to hate on people or attack people. No. But then there's some people out there who think what Operation Dudula is doing is inhumane. But it makes you wonder whether are they not seeing the children of South Africans who don't receive the education? It's as if some people are disconnected from reality, and it's sad. It's sad because it's not something that is hard to find out or to see. If you've been living in the suburbs, it's very, very hard to notice what we are speaking about. But even if you are disconnected from these realities, if you really want to find out what's going on, just pay a visit to any township here in South Africa, any rural township or rural area here in South Africa, and just dedicate a day to go and do research. I am telling you, it's easy. It won't even take you the whole day to find a couple of cases of kids who are not in school because of many different reasons that are caused by the accommodation of illegal foreigners inside some of these schools. It's a reality. It's a reality. Yet some people like to act as if when people speak about these realities, they are just delusional. They are not delusional. It's something that you can see for yourself. And it's not a good picture. It's really not a good picture, because if South African children are not prioritized, the people who are actually attached to South Africa, their roots are here in South Africa, that will be devastating for the nation. But then, tell me on the comment section down below, what do you think about this situation? Whether do you also think we should leave the situation as it is here in South Africa, allowing the kids of illegal foreigners to occupy some spaces in our public schools when there's some kids of South Africans who don't receive that education? Is it something that you think we should just let be? Or do you think Operation Dudula is right for saying, no, we must make sure that every South African child gets space in our public schools? Please tell me on the comment section down below. But then if you just enjoyed this video or you learned something new, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate it. My name is Emmanuel and this is Mzansi Versity, the place where we transform lives through knowledge and information. Let's meet again on another video.